Let me tell you something real quick. The day my parents were buried was the same day my sister buried me alive, and I didn't even see it coming. The sky was gray, that heavy kind of gray that feels like the world itself is holding its breath. The kind of day where even the air hurts to breathe. I stood there in a borrowed black suit that didn't quite fit, staring at two caskets lowered into the ground. My mom and dad, gone just like that. No warning, no goodbye, one car crash. One phone call that shattered my entire life. People kept saying the same recycled junk. They're in a better place. Stay strong. Family sticks together. Yeah, that last one. Total lie. My sister, Amanda, stood a few feet away from me, sunglasses on, arms crossed, looking like she was waiting for valet parking instead of mourning her parents. No tears, no shaking voice, just calm. Too calm. At the time, I thought she was just processing differently. Turns out she was already counting money. We weren't close growing up. She was the golden child, the Ivy League degree, the perfect smile, the one who knew how to work a room. I was the fixer, the quiet one, the kid who stayed back to help dad with his business when mom got sick. The one who paid bills, ran errands, sacrificed dreams so the family could breathe easier. But nobody writes that honorare summe. After the funeral, everyone drifted off, one awkward hug at a time. That's when Amanda finally walked up to me. She leaned in and whispered, "We'll talk later." There's a lot to sort out. Something about the way she said it made my stomach drop. Later turned out to mean 3 days. 3 days of silence. 3 days of sleeping in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by memories that now felt like ghosts. 3 days of waiting for my sister to call, to sit down, to say, "Hey, we'll figure this out together." Instead, on day 4, she showed up with a moving truck, no warning, no conversation. Just boxes, strangers walking through the house, and Amanda standing there with a clipboard like she owned the place. What's going on?" I asked, my voice cracking. She didn't even look at me. "This house is mine now," she said flatly. "You need to be out by tonight." I laughed. I actually laughed. Because the idea was so insane it felt like a bad joke. "You serious?" I said. "Mom and Dad wanted both of us." She finally looked at me then, and her eyes, cold, empty. "I got the inheritance," she said. "All of it. $28 million. You got nothing?" That's when my legs felt weak. The $28 million. And me. Being kicked out with a trash bag and a broken heart. But what Amanda didn't know, what nobody knew yet, was that this wasn't over. Because a week later, we sat in a lawyer's office. And one single question was about to flip her entire world upside down. If getting kicked out of my childhood home felt like a slap, then reading the will felt like someone twisting the knife and smiling while they did it. A week after Amanda tossed me out, her lawyer called. Not our lawyer. Her lawyer. That alone should have told me everything. He said we needed to meet to formally conclude estate matters. Those were his words. Cold, clinical, like he was talking about closing a bank account, not erasing a family. The office was downtown, all glass walls and fake plants. The kind of place that smells like coffee and power. Amanda was already there when I walked in, sitting straight, backed in a designer blazer, scrolling her phone like this was just another Tuesday. She didn't look up. Not once. The lawyer cleared his throat and started reading. Property portfolio hers. Investment accounts hers. Offshore funds hers. Trust stocks, assets I didn't even know existed all hers. Every sentence hit harder than the last. Then came the line that broke me. To my younger child. The lawyer read, adjusting his glasses. I leave no direct financial inheritance. No explanation, no letter, no side note. Just nothing. I felt heat rush to my face, my ears rang, my hands clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. I wanted to scream, to ask what kind of parents do that. I wanted to ask if this was some kind of sick mistake. Amanda finally looked at me then. She smiled. Not a big smile. Just a tiny, smug curve of the lips, the kind that says I won. Well, she said casually, standing up? That settles it? I snapped. You seriously think Mom and Dad would leave me with nothing? After everything I did? She shrugged. Feelings don't matter. Paper does. That sentence right there. That's when I realized this wasn't about grief. This wasn't about family. This was about control. I walked out of that office with my whole life in a backpack. No house, no money, no safety net. Just questions eating me alive. That night, I slept on a friend's couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying every memory I had of my parents. Dad teaching me how to balance accounts. Mom telling me, "You're the one we trust." Those words wouldn't leave my head. Something wasn't lining up. Amanda had been gone for years. Living overseas, chasing startups, burning cash. I was the one who stayed. I was the one who signed documents when Dad's hands shook. I was the one who sat in hospital rooms making decisions no kid should have to make. So how did she walk away with 28 million, and I walked away with a trash bag? The next morning, I did something Amanda never expected. I called a lawyer. Not hers, mine, an old guy, sharp eyes, quiet voice. The type who listens more than he talks. I laid everything out, the will, the eviction, the inheritance, all of it. He didn't interrupt, didn't judge, just nodded slowly. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and said one sentence that sent chills down my spine. "Wills don't tell the whole story." That's when hope flickered back to life. Because there was one document nobody had mentioned yet, and once we found it, everything started to change. Here's the thing nobody tells you when you lose everything overnight. Clarity hits different when you've got nothing left to lose. And that's exactly where I was. The lawyer, Mr. Harlan, didn't rush. He slid a yellow legal pad across the desk and asked me to write down everything I remembered helping my parents with. Bills, business decisions, hospital paperwork, anything that had my signature on it. Halfway down the page, his pen froze. "Did you ever have power of attorney?" he asked. I blinked. "Yeah. Dad signed it when Mom got sick. Said Amanda was too busy and I was the reliable one." That's when his eyes sharpened. Power of attorney. Those 3 words flipped a switch. Mr. Harlan stood up, walked to a filing cabinet, and pulled out a thick binder. He explained something Amanda's lawyer conveniently skipped. Estate plans aren't just wills. There are trusts, amendments, side letters, conditional clauses, documents that don't get read unless someone knows to ask. And Amanda didn't think I knew anything. We filed a request for all supporting estate documents. Amanda's legal team stalled. Classic move. Claimed everything relevant had already been disclosed. But here's the kicker: under state law, they had to comply. 3 days later, a digital folder hit Mr. Harlan's inbox. And buried deep inside it was the document. A trust amendment dated 6 months before my parents died. My hands shook as he read it out loud. In the event that my children are unable to jointly agree on the administration of assets. Jointly agree. My sister hadn't even tried. But then came the line that made my stomach flip. The remaining estate shall default to the managing child, defined as the individual actively overseeing family business operations and medical decisions. Mr. Harlan looked up slowly. "That's you." For the first time since the funeral, I felt like I could breathe. This wasn't about favoritism. It wasn't about love versus money. It was about responsibility. My parents trusted the person who showed up, and Amanda. She was never around. But here's the twist. Amanda had already moved the money, wire transfers, asset conversions, shell accounts. She didn't just inherit the 28 million, she locked it down fast, like she knew something might surface. That's when Mr. Harlan said the words that sent a chill down my spine. This could be considered fraudulent misrepresentation. In plain English, Amanda might have committed a crime. Still, we were missing one thing. One final trigger that could force the court, and her lawyers, to reopen everything, and it didn't come from paperwork. It came from a meeting. A mandatory one. The same one where Amanda smirked, confident she'd won. The same one where the lawyer across the table leaned forward and asked one question she never saw coming. "Let me paint this scene for you. Because this is where the power started shifting, and you could feel it in the room." The conference room was colder than it needed to be. Long table, leather chairs, bottled water nobody touched. Amanda walked in late, heels clicking like punctuation marks, confidence turned all the way up. She didn't even glance at me. To her, I was already erased. Her lawyer sat beside her, smug and relaxed, the kind of guy who charges by the minute and smiles while doing it. Mr. Harlan and I sat across from them. Calm, quiet. Waiting. The meeting started with formal nonsense. Case numbers, procedural jargon, reminders about confidentiality. Amanda yawned. Actually yawned. She thought this was a waste of time. Then Mr. Harlan slid a single document across the table. The trust amendment. Amanda's smile twitched. Her lawyer picked it up, flipped through it, then froze. You could hear the page stop turning. His jaw tightened. That smug look. Gone. What is this? Amanda snapped. Mr. Harlan leaned back. An amendment your parents signed 6 months before their passing. Legally binding. Properly notarized. Amanda laughed, but it sounded thin. Forced. That's irrelevant. I already received the inheritance. That's when Mr. Harlan leaned forward. And that? He said calmly, brings us to my question. The room went dead silent. He looked directly at Amanda and asked, did you disclose this amendment before transferring the assets? Boom. No yelling, no accusations. Just one clean, surgical question. Amanda's eyes darted to her lawyer. Her lawyer didn't answer. Because he couldn't. If she said yes, there'd be proof. If she said nah, that's fraud. Seconds stretched. My heart was pounding so loud I swear everyone could hear it. Finally, she snapped. I didn't think it mattered. Wrong answer. Her lawyer's face drained of color. He leaned toward her and whispered something urgently. She shook her head, annoyed, like he was overreacting. But Mr. Harlan wasn't done. You certified full disclosure when you moved those funds, he continued. If this amendment wasn't included, that's material omission. Material omission. Another legal way of saying you screwed up big time. The room flipped. Amanda wasn't in control anymore. She started talking fast. Too fast, rambling, claiming she handled everything and assumed authority. Every word dug her deeper. Then her lawyer did something wild. He asked for a recess. That's lawyer code for damage control. As Amanda stormed out, she finally looked at me. Really looked, and for the first time since our parents died, I saw fear crack through her perfect image. But the worst part. This wasn't even the bombshell. Because while they were scrambling, Mr. Harlan quietly handed me his phone. On the screen was a message from a federal compliance officer. Turns out, large transfers like Amanda's don't go unnoticed. And that single question. It had just triggered something much bigger. Here's a hard truth most people don't realize. Money that moves too fast gets loud. And Amanda's money. It was screaming, while she and her lawyer were holed up in a side room whispering like their lives depended on it. Mr. Harlan filled me in. Apparently, when Amanda rushed to move that $28 million, she didn't just shift it between normal accounts. She broke it up, sent chunks overseas, converted assets, played shell games that might fool regular folks, but not federal monitoring systems. Anything over a certain amount, flagged. Multiple transfers in short time frames, flagged again. Transfers tied to an estate still under review, red alert. That, routine, inheritance. It had tripped every wire imaginable. And here's where things got real scary for Amanda. Because when federal agencies smell possible fraud, they don't knock politely. Mr. Harlan's phone buzzed again. Another message. He didn't show me this one right away. But I saw his jaw tighten. They've opened a preliminary inquiry, he said quietly. My stomach flipped. Inquiry into what? Potential misrepresentation during estate distribution, he replied. And possible financial concealment. Translation. Amanda wasn't just facing a civil dispute anymore. She was stepping into criminal territory. The door swung open. Amanda and her lawyer walked back in. But the energy was completely different now. Her confidence. Gone. She sat down stiffly, eyes glued to the table. Her lawyer cleared his throat. My client is willing to revisit the distribution. Revisit, that's rich. Mr. Harlan stayed calm. Before we discuss redistribution, there's a compliance matter we need to address. Amanda snapped. What now? He slid another paper forward. A formal notice. Her face went pale. It was a request for transaction records, full transparency. Every account, every transfer, domestic and international. You can't be serious, she whispered. Oh, we're very serious, Mr. Harlan replied. Because if the funds were moved under false pretenses, this escalates. Amanda finally lost it. She slammed her hands on the table. I did what I had to do. He didn't deserve it. There it was. The truth slipping out. Didn't deserve it, I said quietly. For taking care of mom and dad while you were chasing startups. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her lawyer leaned in close and whispered something sharp. She nodded slowly, like the weight of it was crushing her. Then came the sentence I'll never forget. We recommend freezing the remaining assets immediately. Freeze. $28 million. Locked. Amanda looked at me like I had just pulled the floor out from under her. But the real shock was still coming. Because when the investigation widened, it didn't just uncover financial misconduct. It uncovered something about Amanda's past that even I didn't know. Something my parents had been protecting. And once that came out, there was no going back. You ever feel like the ground under you isn't just shaking, but actually cracking open? That's exactly how it felt when the investigation dug deeper. Because this stopped being about money real fast, and started being about truth. 2 weeks into the federal inquiry, Mr. Harlan called me late at night. Not an email. Not a text. A call. That alone told me this wasn't normal. They found something, he said. His voice was low, careful. Something your parents knew about, and documented. My chest tightened. About what? About Amanda. Turns out, while I was handling hospital bills and keeping the family business alive, my parents were quietly cleaning up my sister's messes. Big ones. Failed ventures. Questionable partners. And one incident that never made the news, but absolutely could have. Years ago, Amanda had taken investor money for a startup that never existed. No product. No team. Just hype and smoke. When the money vanished, my parents stepped in. They paid people back. Signed NDAs. Made it disappear. Not out of favoritism, but fear. Fear that Amanda would destroy herself. And here's the kicker: that trust amendment. It wasn't just about responsibility, it was protection. A safeguard. My parents knew if Amanda got full control of the estate, she'd burn through it. Or worse, land herself in prison. They designed the amendment to prevent exactly what she did. And now, the system had caught up. When Amanda was questioned by compliance officers, she cracked. Not all at once, but enough. Contradicted herself. Forgot timelines. Lied about accounts already flagged. That's when her lawyer, requested to withdraw representation. If you know anything about law, you know that's the equivalent of someone jumping off a sinking ship and yelling, "Good luck." The next meeting was brutal. Amanda showed up alone. No blazer, no confidence. Just tired eyes and shaking hands. She finally looked at me and said, "You don't understand how much pressure I was under." I almost laughed. "I understand pressure," I replied. "I lived it." She tried to spin it. Said she deserved the money. Said I was always the backup. Said mom and dad expected me to catch her. And in a twisted way, she was right. They did expect me to catch her. But they also expected me to stop her if she went too far. That's why the amendment named me the managing child, not because they loved me more, but because they trusted me more. By the end of that week, the court issued a temporary ruling. Asset redistribution pending full review. Amanda's access restricted. Me named interim estate administrator. When the judge said my name, Amanda broke down, full on sobbing. But here's the thing. This wasn't revenge. This was consequences. And the final ruling. It was going to change both our lives forever. You know that moment right before a verdict comes down, when the room feels too quiet, like even the walls are holding their breath. That's exactly how it felt sitting in that courtroom. Amanda sat at the opposite table, shoulders slumped, eyes red. No entourage. No fancy lawyer whispering strategies. Just her. And the weight of every choice she'd made pressing down on her. The judge adjusted his glasses and began reading the findings. Misrepresentation during asset transfer. Failure to disclose material amendments. Violation of fiduciary responsibility. Each point landed like a hammer. Then came the line that flipped the script completely. The court recognizes the trust amendment as valid and enforceable. My heart pounded. The role of managing beneficiary, the judge continued, is hereby assigned to the petitioner. That was me. Amanda let out a sharp breath, like she'd been punched in the gut. But the judge wasn't finished. Due to reckless handling of estate assets, the respondent is ordered to relinquish all control and return all recoverable funds. Return. Out of the 28 million, nearly 24 million was traced and clawed back, frozen accounts unlocked, this time in my name, under court supervision. Amanda stared at me like I was a stranger. "What about me?" she whispered. The judge answered without looking up. "You will receive a structured allowance pending further review." An allowance. From queen of the castle to supervised spending, just like that. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered. Amanda pushed past them, head down. I stood there alone, sunlight hitting my face for the first time in months. But winning didn't feel how I thought it would. I didn't feel rich. I didn't feel powerful. I felt heavy. Because this wasn't just about money. It was about watching your own blood self-destruct. Later that night, I went back to the house. The one she kicked me out of. Walked through empty rooms filled with echoes. I found Mom's old recipe book. Dad's notes in the office drawer. They planned for this, not the crash. Not their deaths. But Amanda. They trusted me to finish what they started. And that's when I made a decision that shocked everyone. I wasn't going to burn Amanda. I was going to break the cycle, because sometimes the biggest flex isn't revenge, it's control. And what I did next, nobody saw coming. If you think getting control of millions instantly turns you into a villain or a hero, you're wrong. What it really does is force you to decide who you actually are when no one's left to impress. The morning after the ruling, I sat alone in my parents' kitchen. Same table, same creaky chair Dad used to sit in. The silence was loud. No Amanda, no lawyers, no court orders being read out loud, just me and a choice. Everyone around me had opinions. Friends said, "Cut her off." Advisors said, "Protect yourself." Strangers online said, "She deserves nothing." And yeah, maybe they were right. But then I found a handwritten letter tucked inside Mom's recipe book. I'd never seen it before. No envelope. Just folded paper with my name on it. It was short. "If you're reading this, it means we didn't get the chance to explain everything. You were always the strong one. Not because you could endure, but because you knew when to stop damage before it spread." I sat there for a long time. Amanda wasn't evil. She was reckless, broken, addicted to shortcuts and applause. And my parents had spent their lives trying to shield her from consequences. I wasn't going to repeat that mistake. So I made my move. I set up a court-approved trust for both of us. Amanda's portion came with conditions: mandatory financial oversight, therapy, no lump sums, no offshore transfers, no solo decisions. When she found out, she stormed into the house furious. "You think this makes you better than me?" she yelled. "No," I said calmly. "It makes me responsible." She broke down again. This time different. Not rage. Not entitlement. Fear. Because for the first time in her life, someone wasn't rescuing her or enabling her. They were holding her accountable. I told her she could stay. Temporarily. But this was no longer her house. It was a legacy. And legacies don't survive greed. She left that night without a word. But the real surprise came weeks later. A letter arrived from the same federal office that froze her accounts. Case closed. No charges. But a permanent record. Amanda had walked right up to the edge. And barely stepped back. And me. I finally slept through the night. Because the question that changed everything didn't just expose the truth. It handed me the future. And the final chapter. It's not what you think. You never hear people talk about what happens after the chaos. After the courtroom's empty. After the headlines fade. After everyone stops checking in. That silence. It's heavier than the noise ever was. Months passed. The estate settled into something stable. Businesses running clean, accounts transparent, no more secrets hiding in shadows. I hired professionals, not yes men. Every decision went through layers of accountability, the kind my parents always wanted but never had time to enforce. And Amanda, she disappeared for a while, no calls, no texts, just distance. At first, I thought she was plotting. Old habits die hard. But then I got a message I never expected. "Can we talk?" 3 words. No attitude, no demands. We met at a small diner off the highway. Neutral ground. She looked different. No designer clothes. No polished confidence. Just human. She told me about the therapy. About finally admitting she was chasing validation instead of building anything real. About how losing control scared her more than losing money. "I thought money made me safe," she said quietly. "Turns out it just made me loud." I didn't forgive her that day. Not fully. Trust doesn't snap back like a rubber band. But something shifted. We weren't enemies anymore. We were just two damaged people standing in the wreckage of the same childhood, trying to rebuild differently. That night, I went back to the house and stood on the porch. Same spot Dad used to stand, coffee in hand. I finally understood something. Inheritance isn't about what you receive. It's about what you carry forward. My parents didn't leave me 28 million. They left me responsibility. They left me a test. And that one question the lawyer asked, it didn't just expose fraud. It exposed who was ready to lead. Who was ready to protect. Who was ready to stop the cycle. And the final section. That's where everything comes full circle. People always ask me how it ended. Like there's some flashy twist, some mic drop moment where justice does a victory lap. But the truth? The ending was quiet. Powerful. Permanent. That one question. Did you disclose the amendment before transferring the assets? It didn't just change a case. It changed lives. Amanda lost the illusion that money equals power. I lost the belief that doing the right thing guarantees fairness. And somewhere in between, we both learned what accountability really costs. The estate is thriving now. The business my parents built is stronger than ever. Scholarships in their name help kids who remind me of who I used to be. Quiet, overlooked, dependable. And Amanda, she's rebuilding. Slowly, on terms she can't manipulate. For the first time she's earning, not inheriting, respect. Sometimes I think about how close I came to walking away that day I was kicked out with a trash bag. How easy it would have been to accept the lie that paper defines worth. But paper doesn't tell the whole story. People do. And the right question, asked at the right moment, can expose everything. Greed, truth, love, and legacy. If you're watching this, and you've ever felt erased, overlooked, betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you, remember this. Your story isn't over just because someone else tried to end it. Sometimes, all it takes is one question, and the courage to stay in the room long enough to hear the answer.